Hey friends, welcome back to another weekly wellness chat. I'm thinking that's what I'm going to go with as far as the name. I discussed this last week about how Wellness Wednesday is not really working out with my schedule as well as it used to because we have our live chats now on Wednesdays, and so thinking of moving to Thursdays, but Wellness Thursdays didn't work. Anyways, I got a lot of great suggestions from you guys last week, and I heard like Thriving Thursdays and Thursdays to Thrive and different things like that, and then also Weekly Wellness or Wellness Weekly, and I think wellness weekly chat. I might play with the word chat at the end, think of something else. But I like that because then it gives me the flexibility of not having to do it on a Thursday if it doesn't work out one week on a Thursday. So weekly wellness update, weekly wellness talk, something like that. So this week, I am super excited to share the news that I have for you. If you have watched me for a year or so, you probably are aware of the journey that I have been on in regards to my iron. I'm going to give you a real quick overview because I know some people will come to this video that do not know my whole story. If you have been following me for the whole year, you may want to skip forward a little bit because I'm just going to give the overview to give context for everyone that's just jumping in. But a little over a year ago, I got some blood work done and found that I was extremely iron deficient. My ferritin was at a level of 9, and there are lots of different opinions on what an optimal level is of ferritin, but by all of those standards, I was considered low and iron deficient. So that got me started on a journey of trying to figure out the underlying cause. The first step that my doctor recommended was to go get an iron infusion. And so I went and I got a big iron infusion, and within a couple of weeks, well, really quickly, I started to see benefits. And then within a couple of weeks, I felt the best that I had felt in a really long time. I didn't realize how bad I had been feeling until I started feeling better. And I knew that the iron infusion was not the fix to the problem. It was more of a band-aid to get me, back to a normal level, and then I needed to figure out what to do for the underlying cause. So at that time, what made sense to me and what was recommended by my doctor and other people I was listening to was to focus on iron absorption. And there's all kinds of different ways that you can enhance iron absorption through your diet and your lifestyle and different things. And I went down the road of trying to figure out what it was that was causing me not to be able to absorb iron well. And through some research and some testing, I decided to focus on SIBO. I got a positive SIBO breath test result, and it is documented that having SIBO can inhibit iron absorption as well as the absorption of other nutrients. And so it made a lot of sense to me that if I did have SIBO, that getting that fixed would help my iron absorption issues. So I went down the path of eradicating SIBO, and overall, I am so happy that I did those SIBO protocols, the SIBO killing protocols, because it really helped my digestion. It really impacted my gut health. I feel like it was definitely a net positive for me in my health. I found though that it didn't affect my iron issues. My iron was still dropping at a super rapid rate. And basically I got myself into a cycle of going and getting smaller iron infusions, which again, I knew was just a band-aid, but it was like, I need to just, keep my iron up while I try to figure out what I need to do to maintain it on my own. So I was getting iron infusions about every 2 months, like small ones. And basically what I found is that my iron would drop, or my ferritin, which is your stored iron in your body, would drop about 30 points every month. And when it's dropping that fast, I found that I just felt horrible. So especially around my time of the month, when of course that's when it's dropping the fastest, I would just get all of the symptoms of iron deficiency rushing back, and it was just torture. It was like a roller coaster because I would get to the iron infusion, and for a little while I would feel a little better, but then I'd have my first cycle after that and I would start to get worse. And then by the time I had my second cycle after the infusion, I would just feel horrible. And during this whole time, I was experimenting because I knew that the iron infusions were not a long-term solution. And I was experimenting with all different like supplementation strategies, like different ways of eating, timing meals, different things to enhance stomach acid, like all these different things. And literally nothing made a dent. And I did experiments where I didn't supplement at all. And I saw how my iron was dropping, my ferritin was dropping, and I did experiments where I supplemented heavily, and there was basically no difference between the two. And I was kind of at the end of my rope, like, this is not working. And real quick, I want to throw in here that I do know that iron supplementation works for some people depending on what their underlying cause is. So I don't want to communicate that iron supplementation is not of value for anyone. I thought it was going to be the answer for me. It just makes sense that if you don't have enough iron in your body, you need to consume more iron or figure out a way for your body to absorb it better. That just makes sense. But after going through a year or so of trying to find a way to make that work, I had to be honest with myself and say, this is not working. Apparently, that's not my problem. So about 4 months ago, I decided to shift gears completely. I felt like I gave the iron supplementation route a really solid try. I didn't give up soon. I did it for about a year, and I was definitely ready to say, I tried it. It didn't work for me. Let's try something different. And so I went down the path of supplementing with copper and zinc and some other cofactors of iron. And this is a huge shift in thinking about iron in the body. So I started listening to some other voices talking about how actually supplementing with iron and doing these iron infusions can have some unintended consequences. One of them being that it depletes other minerals in your body. And that made a lot of sense to me because we all know that the body loves balance. And when you're shoving in a whole bunch of one thing, it can offset that balance. So that made a lot of sense to me. And another argument that they have is that there's already a lot of iron in our diets and in our bodies already, and that it is unusual that people actually need more of it. They just need other cofactors in order to recycle it and use it efficiently. So according to the copper people, I like to call them the copper people, and it's just such a different, it's like a huge shift in mindset. So it's a whole different paradigm. So the copper people say not to supplement with iron at all. Like you want to actually minimize the iron. And then you want to build up the other minerals, particularly copper, and then keep everything in balance. And when things are in balance, then they can work together and things function better. So my last iron infusion was 6 months ago. And then when 2 months had passed and I did my last experiment with iron supplementation, and I saw that my ferritin had still dropped like that 30 points that it had been every single month, no matter what I did, I decided that's when I was going to change my approach. So 4 months ago, I started supplementing with copper and zinc and a few other cofactors. And I told you guys about that 2 months ago because I wanted to supplement for a little while to kind of see what was going to happen. And I got on and I shared with you guys in an update that my ferritin only dropped 12 points over those 2 months, which I still was bummed to see that it dropped, but I was really happy that it wasn't 30 points again. It wasn't just plummeting to zero like it had been. And I also shared in that video that some of my other iron markers, because there's a lot of different, it's very complex, a lot of different markers involved, and all of them seem to be going in the right direction. So I was really encouraged about that. So now it has been 2 more months and I just got my blood work done. And I was very thrilled. I cannot tell you how thrilled I was to see that I maintained my ferritin level for 2 whole months by myself without supplementing iron and without an iron infusion. So 2 months ago, when I got my ferritin level tested, it was 58. And when I just got it retested just about a week ago, it was 59. So I actually went up 1 point. And just as a little bit more context, I have never, besides after getting an iron infusion, when I feel like my ferritin was artificially raised, anytime I've had my ferritin tested in my entire adult life, I've never seen it out of, I think, the 20s. So to see that I maintained a level over 50 for 2 months, I was super, super thrilled with. And again, all of my other iron markers like hemoglobin, total iron binding capacity, saturation, all of those numbers got better. So I am seeing improvement across the board with all of my different iron numbers. And then here's one other thing that I think is really, really interesting and I'm super thrilled about. And that is my white blood cell count. So as I started researching from the copper people, all the information from the copper people, one thing that stuck out to me was that, well, first of all, the copper people say that blood testing for copper deficiency or for copper overload is really not accurate. In order to get an accurate idea of how much copper is stored in your body, you'd have to do like a bone marrow biopsy, which no one's going to do just for like a nutrient. And so you can't rely on copper blood tests, but there are some other blood tests that you can look at and it can give an indication of copper deficiency. And one of those, they say, is the white blood cell count. And so, one thing that I had noticed as I was going through these months of getting iron infusions and doing this really high supplementing of iron, my white blood cell count was going down. And apparently, according to the copper people, this is a sign of copper deficiency, white blood cell count low. And so since I had been seeing that, I was like, this is going to be a really interesting test. If I start to supplement with the copper, will I see that number go up? So I shared 2 months ago, after my first 2 months of supplementing with copper, that my white blood cell count did in fact go up. It was at a 3.4 when I started 4 months ago. And then after 2 months of supplementing, it was up to a 3.6. So it didn't go up very much and it still was flagged by the lab as low. And then I'm happy to report that on this last blood test that I got, let me get the exact number, it was up to a 4.1. So it went up 0.5 and it is now well within the normal range. So over the 4 months of supplementing with copper, I consistently saw that number go up all the way until I am normal again. So that was another really big confirmation to me that I was on the right track and that if I had continued on with the roller coaster of iron infusions, it was going to do way more damage than it did good. So I'm just so happy about that. That was just a really, really big confirmation that things are working better in my body. Okay, so all of those numbers are fantastic and they're all really important to look at and to be aware of. But all in all, what really matters is how a person feels, right? There's this cartoon that I've seen go around where this woman is like on the verge of death and she has spots all over her face and she just looks horrible. And the doctor's standing there with the papers saying, your numbers look great. You're in perfect health. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Those numbers don't mean anything if you're not feeling good. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm feeling. And I am also happy to report that I'm feeling very good. One huge symptom of iron deficiency that I had horrible when my ferritin was at that 9 level is brain fog and not being able to speak clearly. And when it was at its worst, it was like I was even slurring my words. And I've described it before as like my brain and my mouth could not work at the same time or at the same rate. And so I'd have to talk until I ran out of thoughts and then I'd have to stop. It's like my brain would be empty and I'd have to stop talking to be able to think again about what I was going to say next. Like I didn't have the ability to think about what I was going to say next while I was saying the first thing. That is so much better now. And it's really interesting with being a YouTuber because I can really see it clearly, like when I'm editing videos or when I'm just trying to, sit and get something out. And I have absolutely seen a difference in how well I am able to communicate something without having the pauses, without having the slurred words and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say that it's perfect, like my brain is functioning the best it's ever functioned, but the difference now versus where I was 4 to 6 months ago, it is a big difference, and I'm seeing improvement. So on all accounts, I feel like it's another indication that I am on the right track with what my body needs. So in my video a couple months ago, when I first told you about trying out this copper centric protocol, I shared with you a whole bunch of different benefits that I saw after I started taking copper and the other cofactors. It's not just one single mineral. And I will say that all of those benefits that I laid out in that video, they all have continued, and I absolutely contribute them to both stopping the iron supplementation, because a lot of iron in your body, I mean, it's toxic to your body in too high of amounts. And so I think both removing that input as well as adding in the other minerals and getting my body in balance have had some really huge effects on my health. And again, I'm just so thrilled about that, and counting those also as confirmation that I'm on the right track. So just real quick to go over those, if you want more detail about those benefits that I've seen, that other video from 2 months ago, I think I went into a little bit more detail. But the first one is that I think I had some sort of bladder inflammation, like very low level, just enough that I had to, my TMI, of course, that I had to completely empty my bladder before I was able to fall asleep. And if I didn't fall asleep fast enough and my bladder filled just a little bit, it would feel like I had to go a lot and I would have to get up and go to the bathroom. So some nights before I was actually able to fall asleep, I'd have to get up and go to the bathroom like 2 or 3 times, 4 times, sometimes more. I would sleep through the night after I, initially fell asleep. But that getting to sleep, there was just something going on with bladder inflammation. And I found that within about a month of supplementing with the different minerals, that has gone away and it has stayed gone. And typically I am able to lay down in bed, like go to the bathroom, of course, like we always do before bed, lay down and fall asleep without any issue like that anymore. Even if it takes me a little bit longer to fall asleep, I don't have to get up and go to the bathroom again. Like my body can handle it now. So that has been massive. Also, my cycle regulation, I was finding that my cycle was coming at about day 24, day 25, rather than day 28 or 29, which I would prefer. And then after beginning the supplementation with these different minerals, my cycle regulated to 28 to 29 days. Also, I found that it became lighter. It wasn't at a point where it was really heavy. I've had that in my past. It was kind of medium, and then now it's a whole lot lighter and often shorter. So 4 days instead of 5 or 6 days. So definitely positive indications on that front as well. Another benefit that I noticed right away was the coloring of my face. I also had this really fascinating thing happen with my fingernails. Now, my fingernails still have ridges. That's something I'm hoping that getting balanced with the minerals will help eventually, but I don't know. But one fascinating thing that happened when I started supplementing copper is I could see the color in my fingernails just start to come. Like it was darker purpley and red, and it was lighter above that. And it was almost like a loading screen on a computer. And I watched it, every week it would, be a little, and eventually my fingernails grew all the way out. And so I had the color all the way across my fingernails, but it was really fascinating to see that line right in the middle of my fingernails where it was 2 different colors. So that was just kind of fascinating to witness. So finally, after all these months of experimenting and trying different things and feeling like I was getting nowhere, I finally feel like I'm getting somewhere. And I don't think that I'm, at anywhere near perfect health yet. I think there's definitely room for improvement in a lot of areas, but the progress that I have made in the last 4 months, I am just completely thrilled with. And like I said, confirmation that I'm on the right path. It's always so hard when you're trying to deal with health issues and you don't feel like you're on the right path. You're like searching for the path and you don't have it yet. So just knowing that I am headed in the right direction is just such a relief. And I'm just very optimistic moving forward, that I'm going to get somewhere, and I've already gotten somewhere. So I'm just happy all around. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. As always, I'm only sharing my journey. I'm not prescribing anything for anybody else or recommending anything for anybody else. I will put information down in the description of people that I have listened to and different places that I have gotten information. I will put the disclaimer out there that I do not 100% agree with any of the people that I am putting in the description. There are very few people in this world that I 100% agree with on anything, but I just want to put it out there that I don't fully support every stance from these people, but as you can tell, I got a lot of good information from these sources, and it was enough to get me going in the right direction. So I will put that down below. Be sure to do all your own research. I am not going to share exact amounts of all the different things I'm taking because I don't want anyone to follow that or copy that. It's just very personal, very individual. And I encourage anyone to just do their own research and find out, what's going to be the best choice for you. Thanks so much for watching on this Wellness Weekly update video. Hope you guys are all doing great, and I will see you again in the next one.